Finally, guys, the details to the longest trade in history. Mark Giordano has been traded from the Seattle Kraken to the Toronto Maple Leafs, along with Colin Blackwell. Um, so, Colin Blackwell, Giordano to Toronto. They're retaining 50% of Giordano's contract heading to Toronto. In exchange, Seattle's getting two second round picks and a third round pick. We're not sure of what years those picks are from. The details are coming out slowly, but we don't want to waste any more time. And basically, it finally happened. The details after an hour after the deal was announced that he was going to Toronto, which was his preferred destination to go. Um, this is a team that wanted and needed a defenseman badly. You're getting a guy with experience. You're getting a guy with lots of leadership. He's been the captain of the Seattle Kraken for this season only, and has been the captain of the Calgary Flames for many years. And now he's going to his third team. And Luca, what are your thoughts on this deal?
I mean, look, first of all, that was a long ass wait. But I mean, besides that, I mean, finally the deal gets announced. Listen, I think for the Leafs, this is a good move. They get themselves a defenseman in Mark Giordano. He's a puck moving defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman. Obviously, his age is up there. You look at a guy that's 38 years old. He's kind of on the decline a little bit. Even this season, he hasn't been fantastic. But it's still Mark Giordano, and I think you know what you're getting with Mark Giordano. You're getting a veteran leader who's been a captain. He's played for a Canadian team already. He's from Ontario, and I think it's an opportunity for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get themselves some nice leadership into their locker room. And obviously, with Giordano, what makes this deal work is obviously the retaining salary, and obviously also the Leafs also trading Travis Dermott as well, which we're going to talk about afterwards. But that also helped. That also helped the deal in a big way for them. But in terms of what they get, I mean, they're getting a puck-moving defenseman in Giordano, a guy who I think is going to help them offensively, but also defensively. And it's a good move for them. And I think Colin Blackwell as well, he's going to provide some stability on those third and fourth lines. He's a guy who can play on the penalty kill. He's a guy who can score points. He's a good depth guy to have on your team. And he's good defensively as well. And I think that's something that Toronto's needed for a while. In terms of having, some guys on that third, fourth line that are able to play better defensively. And I think we talked about this before the trade deadline, how the Leafs were looking at defense and how defense was a big priority for them. And they've addressed it here. And I think that Kyle Dubas has done a really good job in fixing those needs. But not only that, they gave away 2 second-round picks, which, it's a steep price, but for what Mark Giordano brings and for what the market's been, I think it makes a lot of sense to trade those 2 second-round picks and obviously the third. And I think it's important for them because Toronto doesn't move their first-round pick, which is something that Kyle Dubas has done over the last couple of years, and he hasn't done it. He didn't pounce on
I have
trading
I have a
first-round
lot to say about this trade, and then I
So
think
I
a
like
lot,
it, to be honest.
and I think a lot of Toronto fans could agree with me on this one. They dropped the ball in acquiring Josh Manson, Ben Sherratt, Hampus Lindholm. Um, I don't know who else you could really consider a big name. I know there was other guys like Robert Hagg that got dealt,
Yeah,
um, Troy Stetcher, and so on, right?
yeah.
But in terms of the big names on the market concerning defense, the only one that was left was Chikrin, and there was no way that Dubas was willing to give up his first round pick in this year's NHL draft. So essentially, he gives up 2 second round picks, which, let's be honest here, if Toronto does not make it past the first round, those 2 second round picks are going to be high second round. Oh, sorry. Um, how many? Wait. Well, the years didn't come out yet. Okay, but let's say it's this year's
Let me check
second round
actually.
pick. Okay,
Yeah.
it's essentially going to be a higher second round pick because it goes based off the standings, right? So if they finish, I don't know, let's say like they get eliminated in the first round, it's basically gonna be a higher second round pick as opposed to like if they would go further into the playoffs, it would be a lower second round pick. I don't really see Toronto going that far this year.
I have a feeling if the 2 second round picks, I have a feeling are probably going to be this year and next year's second rounder, and probably the Jets' third round pick which they got in the Dermott trade. That's what I would assume it would be, because those are the picks that the Leafs currently have, unless another move gets made. But I think that those are the picks that are going to most likely be dealt. They haven't officially confirmed it, but just based on what I see on Cap Friendly, the Leafs have their second rounder in 2022 and 2023. So I have a feeling both those are going to get traded, plus either the Jets third rounder or the Leafs third rounder in 2023.
Yeah, so like I was going back to what I was saying, if they get eliminated in the first round, it's going to be a high second round pick. And next year, we don't know how they're going to do. It could go, they could be a top team, or maybe they have an off year and maybe they fall down in the standings. And that second round pick going to Seattle will be a high pick as well. So essentially, they're getting, there's a chance they may get like a very low first round pick, because let's be honest, there's some guys that fall to the second round sometimes that are projected to get drafted in the first round. So in terms of value, I think this is fantastic for the Seattle Kraken. They're also getting an additional third round pick, and you could get good quality prospects in the second and third round. So I think for Seattle, this is an absolute win, especially for an expansion team in their first year. It's unfortunate they're trading their captain, but he wasn't there for that long, so there's not really an attachment. And this is an expansion, so it's all about getting rid of the players that you have in order to build for the future.
I have the official picks for the year. So the second round picks in 2022 and 2023, like I mentioned, and the third round pick is 2024. So a 2022 second, a 2023 second, and a 2024 third round pick. Now, you talked about how you like this move for Seattle. I'm going to tell you, I don't really like it, and I'm going to tell you why. You look at a guy like Hampus Lindholm, and you look at a guy like Ben Sherratt. Now, I know that people are going to turn around and say, these guys are younger and whatever. Mark Giordano, in my opinion, seeing the market and seeing what the defensemen are worth, in my opinion, getting a second round pick for Mark Giordano, regardless of what his age is, I think is a fail in its own right. And especially since you're retaining 50%.
Well, he is a UFA as well.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't have any term on his contract.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, I think personally speaking, and people might call me crazy here, and you know what? Hey, if that's the case, so be it. I think there could have been a team out there that would have been willing to give a first round pick for Mark Giordano. And look, 2 second round picks is not bad. And I'm not trying to say that, Seattle completely,
So you're saying if they would have waited until tomorrow, there was a high chance that people would have paid the price that they're asking for.
I'm just saying, if Giordano was capped, if Giordano only wanted to go to Toronto and that was the only destination he was going to go to, then yeah, sure, fine. The second round picks are good.
Well, that was his preferred destination.
That's it.
And they want to respect him, 38 years old. This may be his last chance at winning a Stanley Cup. We don't know if he's going to sign an extension next year. I would say that he's still capable of playing in the NHL, but it's really up to him. Maybe he feels like there's nothing more to do in the NHL, even if he fails to win the Stanley Cup or if he wins the Stanley Cup. It's really up to him, and we can't really assume what his decision is going to be. But think about it this way. Seattle needs as many prospects as possible, right? And if you're getting 2 second round picks with the chance that Toronto does not make it past the first round, those are going to be high second round picks in this year's draft and next year's draft. So thinking about that is very smart for Seattle to have that in mind, because we all know how Toronto performs in the playoffs. And that's no disrespect for Toronto fans or the team. The team's a very good team. It just seems like they cannot get over the hump. It's been years now that they haven't been able to. And in my opinion, Toronto had a much better team on paper last year than this year. Yeah. So, and especially with the competition like Tampa Bay, Florida, Boston, Washington, the Rangers, I feel like out of all those teams, yes, Toronto could win a couple of games here and there, but I feel like all those teams are way superior in terms of offense, defense, and most importantly, goaltending that the Toronto Maple Leafs lack in.
Well, here's the thing that I want to ask you, right? So here's my kind of opinion on it. I look at the Leafs making this move. Now, obviously they put Peter Mrazek on waivers. I don't know what the goaltending situation is going to look. That's why I'm not so sure if the Leafs are done yet, because the goaltending situation is kind of confusing at the moment. I'm not going to lie to you. However, regardless of that, One of the biggest things that the Leafs needed to do was address their decor. You look at Boston, they went to go get Hampus Lindholm. You look at Florida, they went to go get Claude Giroux. They went to go get Ben Sherratt. They went to go get Robert Hagg as well. And obviously with Tampa Bay, they went to go get Brandon Hagel. The Leafs now, they're not behind. I'm not saying, look, in my opinion, I think Florida is still the best team in the Atlantic by far. But I think that the Leafs have done enough that if they go into a playoff series against the Bruins or even against the Lightning, they might be able to come out of that series. And I'm not trying. Look, like for me, I think this is a lot of pressure on Kyle Dubas too. And like John says, and I'm going to mention it because I kind of agree with him. The GM's gone if Leafs lose in the first round. I personally agree with that. I think Kyle Dubas is feeling a lot of pressure. This team in general.
I mean, Shanahan's been president for 8 years now,
that's
and
it. They're feeling pressure
in terms of drafting and the players that they developed. That's fantastic. You look at what they've been able to do the last couple of years, or the past decade. But in terms of playoff success, which is the most important because the ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup, they're not even close to that. They haven't been close to that. They made so many moves where they essentially gave up so much. Sometimes they even won deals, and it was an absolute steal on their side. They've done everything in their path. What is left for them to do to essentially push this team to move past the first round? And not only that, if anything, last year they had the best chance because the Canadian division was quote unquote the weakest or one of the weakest.
And they still
then
lost.
This year, and they lost. And then this year, the competition is 10 times more difficult in terms of not only are those teams like the teams to beat, because I think an Eastern team will win the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah.
Once again, but those teams are adding. You look at Tampa Bay, they add Hagel, Florida, Sherratt, Giroux, Robert Hagg, the Rangers, Vetrano, but they're not done yet. They're gonna keep on adding. The Boston Bruins, you have Hampus Lindholm. We're still awaiting what the Pittsburgh Penguins are gonna add, but they're looking to add more scoring.
Well,
and
here's the thing.
Defenseman. Then you have Washington, who's looking at adding a third line or fourth line player as well. Maybe even trying to add to their defense as well. And then the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are just basically a surprise when it comes to making trades. They're in on everybody, and you never know what they're up to. So all these teams are not only have improved, but they're looking to improve. And then you also look at Toronto's cap situation, where they can't really do much in terms of trying to fit a contract on that roster right now. And they have to improve their defense, which they have with this Giordano deal, while adding depth with Blackwell on offense, which I think is fantastic in terms of how they're able to make that deal, and respecting the fact that they didn't have to give up a first round pick. But if they do fail to pass the first round once again, that second round pick becomes a high second round pick for the Seattle Kraken. And then we don't know what's going to happen next year. And the third round pick, that's just a sweetener. But like, they got a lot, and I like this in terms of like Toronto addressing their need on defense. But it's really up to them now as a team collectively to come together and be like, we need to pass the first round. It's been too long that we haven't been able to. Dubas has been trying to provide us with as many pieces, whether if Toronto fans may say they're ineffective or they are effective. It doesn't matter. He's been trying. He's a very active GM, and you have to give him credit for that. He's been putting the time and effort in trying to get the right players to trying to finally move past the first round. But essentially, it seems like maybe they're cursed, or maybe there's something within the locker room that we don't know about, And but for Seattle, for an expansion team to add 2 second round picks and a third round pick. They're just going to keep on adding. They're going to keep on shedding players in order to acquire prospects and picks, because that's what they have to do. They have to build a team that's going to be competitive within the next couple of years and build for the future, essentially. Because with the team they have right now, it's a team that was selected, by just grabbing the scrap or leftovers of other teams that were just exposed to Seattle to select from. So if I'm Seattle, I like this deal. If I'm a Seattle
Well,
Kraken fan, I like this deal.
I wanna answer one thing I want to answer is Anthony's question. He says that do you guys think it's coaching and not the playoffs that's causing Toronto not to get over the hump in terms of the first round for the playoffs? And I want to answer this question because I think it's a really good question to ask. You know, the Leafs for a long time, we've always talked about their core, right? You've got Matthews, you got Marner, you got Nylander, you got Tavares. And I don't want to get too in depth with it because obviously we're talking about Mark Giordano. But what I'm trying to say is I don't necessarily think it's coaching. And the reason I don't think it's coaching is because Mike Babcock couldn't do it with this group. And Sheldon Keefe right now doesn't seem to be doing it with this group. And I don't think that that's a coaching thing. I think that that's just because the players are the way they are. And I think that the players are the reason that Toronto isn't able to get over the hump. And this is why I'm saying that Kyle Dubas is going to put himself in a tough position. The reason I think that is because if Kyle Dubas brings in a guy like Mark Giordano, and last year they brought in Nick Foligno, and we saw what the outcome was with him. If Mark Giordano comes in and the Leafs can't get past round one, regardless of who they play in the playoffs, to me, it's a sign that Kyle Dubas needs to make that big move. And we all know what that big move is. It's
But it's
trading one of the
chance
core
over
four.
chance over chance every year. It's always, you know
No.
what? Let's try one more year with this core. Let's try one more year with this core.
Yeah, but you can't at some point. You just
Yeah,
can't.
you just can't. And the only team that's been successful as of lately are the Calgary Flames, where managed to keep that core and
Well, Tampa
fought
did
to keep
too.
that
Tampa
core.
did too. Because Tampa kept their core, like they kept Stamkos, for a long time. They were like, Stamkos, Point, Kucherov, like, what do we do with these guys?
And
And
it
they kept
seems
them.
like
They
it's
finally
it's
did it.
paying off for
But
the
it's a
Calgary
different
Flames.
situation.
I mean, it paid off for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I mean, they obviously added so many pieces throughout the years to get those two back-to-back
Yeah,
Stanley Cups.
exactly.
But in terms of Calgary, look at them. They kept the core after failure every single year, and now it seems like things are starting to click because of the coaching change. They added Daryl Sutter. But in
Okay.
terms of Toronto, I don't think it's the coaching and I don't think it's the management. I would assume that it's more something in the locker room. Maybe it's time to split up the core. Over the years, I would say that Toronto had a better team on paper, and now it's reached a point where I look at Toronto's team on paper and I'm like, it's still a good team, but this is arguably the worst team they've had in the last four
Well,
seasons on paper in terms of defense, offense, and goaltending.
now look, that the biggest question mark now in terms of the Leafs is going to be what happens in net, right? If Jack Campbell comes back, are you rolling with Jack Campbell for the playoffs? And if you are, what happens if he gets injured? Because yes, we've seen what Shalgren's done over lately. And I think, look, yes, he's played well, and I'm not trying to take anything away from how he's played, but it's still very early to decide whether he's going to be this great goalie or not. And I'm not too convinced on, Harry Sateri, and I'm also not too convinced on
Yeah,
Joseph
they
Woll.
just signed Harry Sateri
So
to a
that's
one-year
it.
deal,
So I'm,
750K. He has to go through waivers. There's a chance that maybe he gets
but,
claimed
but
by
the
like
point that
a
I'm
team
trying
like
to make,
Edmonton or something.
but the point that I'm trying to make is they lost faith in Mrazek, right? And again, has Mrazek been good this season? No, but I think that the Leafs, if they don't address their goaltending, regardless of whether, even if Jack Campbell comes back, if the Leafs don't acquire a goaltender now and they go into the playoffs with Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek, I'm not so sure if I'm confident.
No,
If you're a Leaf fan, I don't know if you're
no,
confident
not
doing that.
not
And
at
so
all.
that's where I think the Leafs have to figure out if they're getting goaltending or
Well, we
not.
just wanted to say thanks, guys, for tuning in for this trade breakdown. We're going to be covering the minor trades that happened throughout the day. We were waiting for this one because this is the big fish, essentially one of the top names in the trade bait list on multiple analysts lists that were created over the last couple of weeks. Um, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We're going live covering the NHL trade deadline all day tomorrow, breaking down every single deal as it happens. And what are your thoughts on this deal, Toronto fans and Seattle Kraken fans? Is this good for both teams? Does Toronto win? Does Seattle Kraken win? Or is this way too early to tell? But don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out our NHL deadline coverage tomorrow.